So let's start. We will speak today about AWS KMS, so the key management service, and we will specifically talk about how KMS is protecting your encryption keys. So let's start. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Jérémy. I'm working as a cloud architect for Revolve, Devoteam Revolve. I'm kind of passionate about security since ever since I started to do computer science, and I have more than 3 years experience in AWS. And things I specialized into security because it was kind of a hobby, and yeah. And as for the agenda, I will quickly go over the prerequisites, so what you need to know in order to understand what I am going to tell you, the goal of the presentation, and we will dive into principle that ensure that KMS is secure. We will talk about key hierarchy, and we will have a final 2 slides to put it all together to sum up, kind of wrap up the presentation. So about the prerequisites, you must first know that AWS KMS exists, that it is in fact the key management service. It provides encryption at rest for nearly 60, I think, between 50 or 60 other services, like EBS for the EC2 instances storage, S3, of course, and others, Kinesis, etc. We will not speak today about KMS as a service, the good practice of using KMS, how to make encryption keys, how to set up the key policies. All that things we will leave apart. We will just focus on the internal component of KMS and how those components are indeed guarantees the security of your keys. Another thing you need to know is symmetric encryption. So you need to know that AES, so the Advanced Encryption Standard, you need to know that symmetric encryption is when the same key is used to decrypt and to encrypt. And you don't need to know how AES is operating, but you have to be convinced it is in fact secure, because if you are not convinced it is secure, I will have a hard time to convince you KMS is secure. And last but not least, you need to know about digital signatures algorithm. Again, not the specifics of how it works, but what is the functional aspect. So you need to know it's based on hash functions on asymmetric encryption, like RSA or elliptic curve. And it provides data authenticity. So it allows us to validate content and origin of content. And if you know all that, and if you are convinced those principles, those algorithm works, we will build on those foundations to see how KMS is using all those principles to give you a secure key store. So what is the purpose of the talk? It is to understand what is going on inside AWS KMS. So if I were to ask you right now how KMS is working, you will probably know that there is somebody, a user, and you can use the KMS API, but behind that, maybe you think it's some kind of magic, and yeah, we really don't know how it is going on. So right now, I will break that. In fact, behind the API, there is 3 main components, which are a set of KMS hosts. Obviously, there is multiple. A set of HSMs. Donc, again, there is multiple HSMs. We will see what is a hardware security module a little bit later. And there is a data store. I don't know what technology it is. I guess it is something similar to S3, but I'm not sure. And this data store contains CMKs, so customer master keys. And those are the 3 components, and we will go further than that. But this is the right representation of the service. So, what are the principles that keep your case secure? First one is the hardware security module. So it's important to understand what is an hardware security module. The picture you see is an actual picture of an actual HSM used by AWS KMS. I didn't go into the data center. It's just that you can see it's FIPS 140-2 level 2 validated. What it means is that AWS submits a document, architecture document to validate its HSM, and this document contains a photo. So I just steal the picture and put it in there. The things we need to know, there is multiple, but I think the main properties that are important is that an HSM will prevent physical access, unauthorized physical access. So you can see here there is kind of little labels that will obviously break if you try to open the box. And usually, I don't know if it's the case for those one, but usually there is also electrical contactor that if you open the envelope, it will just shut down because it will cut an electrical circuit. When you design a HSM, you will always define all the possible operations, as well as the roles, the different roles that are authorized to do those operations. So there is an exhaustive definition of all the operation the HSM can do and who is allowed to do those operations. The roles for HSM are generally a crypto official, so this is the CO, or a crypto user. The crypto officer is kind of the administrator of the HSM. Generally, it cannot manipulate the keys. It can just set up configurations, and the crypto user is the user, so it will be able to create keys and use them to perform operations, encryption, decryption, etc. So it is a hardware designed to protect secrets, and you must be convinced that once it has been initialized, an HSM cannot operate outside of its intended purpose. What it means is that if, let's say, the HSM does not allow to export keys, that's it. It does not allow it. It's not a question of am I admin or am I just a user? It's just the hardware does not allow it. So it's a fundamental brick of the security because it's not as programmable as a server. It's really just designed to protect secrets. So that's the first principle, and KMS is using a lot of HSMs. For the more curious among you, this is just showing the FIPS validation, the FIPS 140-2 validation. They are validated for the level 2, but it's interesting to see that for some aspects, role definition or physical security, the HSMs are actually validated to the level 3. The overall level is 2 because there is some 2 in that, so you have the lowest. But for physical security and specification, it's actually at the level 3. Okay, another principle is random number generation. AES is secure. If you don't know the key, you cannot retrieve data. But if your key is generated with a really poor random number generator, and if I am able to predict the keys you generate, the strongness of the algorithm will not help you, because I can just generate the keys and use them to decrypt your data. So random number generation is a fundamental principle, and you have to have a good source of random number to perform an efficient cryptography. So there is two kinds of random number generation. There is the deterministic one, which is kind of antinomic, because okay, random, deterministic, it does not seem compatible, but it's what it's called pseudo-random. So I guess most of you already encountered this term, pseudo-random number generator. And the principle is that it will generate a sequence that is apparently random, but in fact is generated by an algorithm, and it's generated from a seed. And if you know the seed, you can generate the sequence. But if you don't know the seed and you are just seeing numbers generated out of this sequence, there is no way for you to predict the next number. So that's the deterministic random number generation. And there is also the non-deterministic random number generation, what we could call really random, or at least non-predictable, unpredictable by mankind. So one example of that is, for example, there is always storms going on on Earth, and when there is a lightning strike, it emits a series of various radio waves that will bounce on the troposphere, ionosphere, and I don't remember which layer of the atmosphere it will bounce on, but it will bounce and it will be detectable as a random noise everywhere on the planet. And this is an example. I don't say it is the one KMS is using. It's just an example of what we call a non-deterministic random number source. And we can probably imagine others, but this is the one I know of. And the problem is deterministic is good because you can basically generate numbers as you wish, maybe 10,000 a second or a million by second. It is no problem. But the non-deterministic source is of high quality. It's obviously better, but it is better. But there is just so much lightning going on in on the Earth, so you cannot really take more than it gives you. And in the case of KMS, they are mixing the two principles. They are using a deterministic algorithm to generate numbers at the frequency they wish. For the specialists, the algorithm is based on AES, and it is called AES CTR, deterministic random generator. And the seed comes from a non-deterministic source. Part of the specification of part of the interest we have of using non-deterministic source is to not disclose which source we are using, because we can imagine if you disclose the source you are using, potentially maybe you can imagine someone will tap in that same source, or yeah. So we don't know which source KMS is using, but they are using a non-deterministic source, and they will generate the seed out of this source and use the algorithm with this seed to generate the random number that you can retrieve when you generate a key or those kind of things. And the algorithm is reseeded frequently so that it stays unpredictable. We don't really know of any attack on pseudo-random algorithms. So you can say maybe there is no reason to reseed the algorithm, but the seed is kind of a secret. So like any secret, the more you use it, the longer it lives, and the higher the probability of the secrets being leaked. So it is actually a pretty good idea to regularly change the seed so that we can be sure it is not leaked somewhere, or yeah. So second principle, random number generation, high quality source of random number, which is a fundamental brick, also a fundamental brick of cryptography and of security. Another principle, which is totally only for KMS, is KMS domains. So what is a KMS domains? Physically, it's just a set of HSMs. So multiple HSMs. I only draw 3, but of course there is more than that. It's a set of operators. The operators can be both human operators, so let's say administrators, or KMS hosts. So remember, we saw the schema with the API, and there is KMS hosts, so which are VMs, virtual machines that will host the API and will operate the HSMs. And so a bunch of those hosts are in the domain. And the third component of the domain is the set of rules defining the interaction between the operators and the HSMs. And one important thing is what we call quorum, and I will come to quorum in I think 2 slides. But yeah, a domain, that's a domain. A set of HSMs, a set of operators, and a set of rules. Those domains only lives in the HSMs. They never leave the HSMs in clear text. The reason for that is that the domain state is defined. Okay, yeah, there is the members, so the HSMs, the operators and the rules, and there is also domain keys. And we will see when we go over the key hierarchy that the domain keys are the top level keys that protects. At the end of the line, it protects your keys, and the domain keys are part of a domain, and obviously they cannot be in clear text outside of a HSM. So that's the reason for why the domain state only exists in HSMs. I will go over quorum briefly. So what is quorum? A quorum rules will allow you to define that a certain operation, let's say a critical operation like decrypting a key or exporting a key, can only be performed only if there is multiple operators that allow the operation. So let's say KMS operator 1 wants to throw some command at an HSM. The first thing the KMS operator will need to do is to sign the command so that the HSM can verify with its domain that the command indeed come from an authorized operator. And the operator will send it to the HSM, and the HSM will say, no, I don't want to execute that. Yes, you are indeed KMS operator 1. Yes, you are authorized to perform commands, but there is a quorum rules, and this quorum rules say that you must be at least 2, so that I can, and only if you are 2, I will execute the command. And remember, the HSM is not programmable. It's just the way it is designed. And yeah, if he wants a quorum, he wants a quorum. So there is no way KMS operator 1 will alone execute the command. So what he will do, he will send the command to KMS operator 2, which he will also sign the same command. So the command now has 2 signatures, one green and one blue. And the command and the 2 signatures are sent to the HSM, and this time it will verify the signature so that indeed operator 1 and 2 are authorized and are part of the domain. And because there are 2, it will also match the quorum rules, and it will execute the command. So yeah, the HSMs needs to you need to perform maintenance tasks on them, maybe sometimes perform key rotation, or yeah, I don't know. And for that, you need to be at least 2. It is the way AWS designed KMS, so that there is not one person that can alone do something on the HSM. The importance of that for the security is that if for some reason one person, one human just go rogue, maybe it has been paid by some third party, or maybe it has just goes mad, this person cannot alone do any damage to KMS. So you need to at least have a conspiracy between 2 operators to imagine compromission by humans. And one of the last principles we will see is envelope encryption. So in order to explain you envelope encryption, I will just show you not envelope encryption, just to illustrate the difference. So imagine you have a master key and you have some data. The most obvious way to encrypt this data is just to use the master key and the data, go over the AES algorithm, and you will obtain encrypted data. The problem with that is, what if the data is and you want you want your master key to never leave the HSM. Because the HSM is designed to protect secrets, so the master key should always be in your HSM and never outside, never on your computer. And okay. And what if your data is 1 gigabyte or 1 petabyte? It will be difficult to send all those data to the HSM so that it performs the encryption. So your only alternative would be to take the key out of the HSM and to perform encryption on your own computer. And you don't want to do that. So how do we solve this problem? The problem is solved. Still, you have a master key, you have data, and you would generate a data key. So kind of an intermediate key. You will use the data key on the data to encrypt the data. You will use your master key to encrypt the data key, and the data key is a tiny bit of information. So as it is AES 256, that means the key is 256 bits. So it's not much, and you can send this information to the HSM. The HSM will encrypt the data key for you, and you will have your encrypted data key. All you need to do now is to store them together, and that's it. You have solved your problem. Your master key never have to leave the HSM, and you can imagine encrypting very big data, giga or petabyte, without a problem. There is another problem that I can go over that is not solved by that. When you are doing that, imagine you are doing it for multiple data. You will generate multiple data keys, and all those data keys will always be encrypted with the same master key. And it is maybe a problem because we don't know any attack on AES. But if an attack exists, probably it will benefit the reuse and the reuse again of the key. So we don't really want to reuse the key for multiple different encryption. And I don't change the title, sorry. So envelope encryption does not solve this problem, but we will see a little later that KMS does solve this problem too. And I have started to talk about different keys, and now it's time to put your seatbelts on because we'll talk about key hierarchy, and it's usually the part when you start having a headache. So yeah, let's dive in. There is 4 keys that you need to keep in mind to understand how KMS is protecting your data and your keys. The first one, we already saw it, is the domain key. So the domain key is a key that only exists in the domain, only in the HSM's member of the domain. And it has a very short life cycle. It is rotated daily. Well, yeah, and we will see just after to what it is used, but it is used to protect HSM backing key. HSM backing keys are again keys that only lives in the HSM memories, and we will see that they are in fact what you call customer master key. I will clarify that just after, and it is rotated yearly. It's an optional configuration. So if you know KMS, you may know that when you create a customer master key, you have the choice to tick a box that will enable auto rotation or not. So if you do it, it will be a yearly rotation, and yeah, it's a HSM backing key. There is a data encryption key. The data encryption key is generated each time you do an encrypt in a encrypt operation on the KMS. KMS will generate a data encryption key and use that data encryption key to encrypt the data you send him. And we will see that. So the life cycle is the shorter possible. It only exists for the time of an operation. And if you want to decrypt, it will be regenerated. We will see that just after. And finally, there is the customer data key. So if you use the KMS call KMS generate data key, it will generate a data key, and this is the data key customer data key we see here. So it's just a key that you will retrieve, and you will use it to encrypt data, or AWS services like EBS or S3 will use it to encrypt data, because most of the time, most of the time you are using KMS through S3 or EBS. So maybe the array is a little hard to wrap up. So let's draw it. You have here a hardware security module of KMS, and you have the storage. So remember, when we saw the first schematic, we saw the API with the KMS hosts, and we saw storage and HSMs. So here we are only seeing storage on the HSMs. So first you have the 4 keys, and let's see how they interact together. So the domain key will allow KMS to encrypt and to protect the HSM backing key. And this is the way KMS is storing your key. So your key is always stored encrypted, and it is encrypted under the domain key. What it means is that only valid KMS HSMs from the domain will be able to retrieve the actual backing key. And it also means that the HSM backing key can only exist in clear text inside the HSM. It cannot be exported in clear text. It will always be exported encrypted, and the name for the encrypted HSM backing key is encrypted key token. The HSM backing key will be used as a seed to generate the data encryption key. So the principle here is that each time you will perform an encrypt operation, the HSM will generate a nonce. Is that just a random number? And with the HSM backing key on this nonce, the HSM will perform a key derivation function, and this key derivation function will give you a data encryption key. Obviously, if you use the same HSM backing key on the same nonce, you can use multiple times the key derivation function, and it will always give you the same data encryption key. And finally, that data encryption key will protect your customer data key. And this customer data key will be sent to you as a ciphertext. Why it is named ciphertext? It's because the encrypt operation can be used also to encrypt arbitrary data to a maximum of 4 kilobytes. And if you use the encrypt operation to encrypt 4 kilobytes of data, you can imagine the same thing, but the customer data key is not here. Here you have data, and yeah, and the return of that is the ciphertext. But the ciphertext is really the customer data key or the data you sent encrypted under the data encryption key. And I made a mistake and I forgot to write it, but this bundle also contains the nonce. And we will see just after that the nonce is mandatory to regenerate the data encryption key and to decrypt your data. So now you know that the customer master key is not really something that exists inside the service. It's only a logical construct of the API, so it's a concept you manipulate. But really, in fact, it's a pointer to a set of HSM backing key. So the real key is not the CMK. Technically, it's the HSM backing key. There can be multiple HSM backing key. Why? Because if you enable the rotation, the auto rotation, the CMK will be rotated yearly, but you cannot forget the old keys. So what it will do is retain the old key, generate a new HSM backing key, and the new HSM backing key will be used for all your new encryption. But if you want to decrypt some old data that you encrypted maybe 2 years ago, it will be able to retrieve the old HSM backing key to perform decryption. If you simply rotate the key and forgot the old key, you will probably lose some data because yeah, without the key you cannot decrypt it. And HSM backing key is the name of the key inside the HSM, and when it is exported, it becomes an encrypted key token. So all those terms, I did not obviously invented them. I should have said to you from the beginning that All this presentation is based on the KMS white paper. So it's a white paper of maybe 42 pages that explain all that. And the goal of the presentation is just I made some schematic to try to explain this white paper, but the real source, there is only one source to this talk, and this is the KMS white paper. And you can, if you are interested, you can find it easily. Just type in Google or Bing or whatever, just type AWS KMS white paper, and the first link will be it. And it's a PDF of 40 to 43 pages. Okay, so what KMS is doing, if we take again our envelope encryption, and once again I forgot to translate the title. It's a very bad job by me. So you have your HSM backing key inside the HSM, and you have a data key. So what the HSM will do is to generate a nonce and use the nonce on the HSM backing key inside a key evaluation function to obtain a data encryption key, and it will send to you your encrypted data key with the nonce. And usually, if you perform a generate data key call on KMS, you will receive the encrypted data key and the data key in clear text. So that's why I made them appear together. And the data key in clear text will be used to encrypt your data. And at the end, you will store the encrypted data and the encrypted data key together. By the way, this is exactly what S3 does. When you are using S3 with KMS, the encryption model is exactly that. S3 is doing the generate data key call for you in the background, but yeah, the cinematic is exactly that. So I guess by now you need a sum up, because it's a lot of information to take in. So there is two quick animation of what is going on when you perform a generate data key and when you perform a decrypt, which are in fact the most in terms of API calls count. Most of the time you are performing generate data keys on decrypt. Typically AWS S3 S3 is only doing generate data key on decrypt. You will never see an encrypt KMS call from S3. It never does that. So first, the setup. So you have a KMS domain. Inside of this domain, you have multiple hosts and multiple HSM. For the purpose of the animation, we will just choose one of those HSM, let's say HSMX, and one host, let's say host Y. You have also the KMS storage, which is somewhere in the data center. And in your HSM, you have the domain key. And in the storage, you have your encrypted key token. And right now, you are making the call, generate data key, and you put as a parameter, you use your CM key ID. The host will take the CM key ID and map it to an encrypted key token in the storage to retrieve it. So it will retrieve the corresponding encrypted key token, and it will perform a call to the HSM. So according to the specification of the HSM, the call is named generate and encrypt random bytes. Again, I didn't invent the rules. It's the actual name of the call. And this call will take as a parameter the encrypted key token. Once you have made the call, the HSM will first generate a customer data key, so the random byte. and it will use its domain key to retrieve the HSM backing key from the encrypted key token. This arrow here is just to illustrate the link between the encrypted key token, the domain key, and the HSM backing key. But obviously, the HSM never directly speak to the storage. It has the HSM has the encrypted key token because the host is giving it to him. With this HSM backing key, the HSM will generate a nonce and generate a data encryption key, so a DEC. With the data encryption key, it will create the ciphertext. So the ciphertext is a complex structure, but essentially it contains the key, the encrypted key, the nonce, the ID of the HSM backing key used to encrypt, and some more meta information. And what you will get in return of your generate data key call is this ciphertext and usually the customer data key in clear text. There is an option when you make this call, there is an option to not have the clear text version of the key, but usually you retrieve the two together. And last but not least, once all is done, the HSM just forget everything. That's why this boundary is called ephemeral memory versus persistent memory. So the persistent memory is not like a hard drive or a solid state drive. It's just RAM, but the domain key is the only thing the HSM will remember in permanence. All the operations are done in ephemeral memory, and as soon as the operation is finished, the HSM forget everything. And you can imagine that's also why you can any HSM of the domain can perform those operations, because all the HSM of the domains share the same domain key, so they are all capable of doing what we just saw. So now let's say you want to perform a decrypt operation. So you have the same setup, you have a host, you have a KMS HSM, you have a storage. And this time you are sending a KMS decrypt. And the only argument you are giving to decrypt is the ciphertext. There is nothing more to pass because as I said, the ciphertext contains all the information needed to perform decryption. Once again, the host will interpret the ciphertext, will extract the HBK, the HSM backing key ID, and will retrieve the corresponding encrypted key token. And this time, it will perform a decrypt call on the HSM. So for this, AWS have the same name at the API level and the HSM level. And the decrypt call is done by passing again the encrypted key token and the ciphertext. And it will really be the same. You have the ciphertext with the nonce. The HSM will retrieve the HSM backing key from the encrypted key token using its domain key. It will use the same nonce to regenerate the data encryption key, and it will use the data encryption key to decrypt your ciphertext and to retrieve your original customer data key and to return it to you. And that's how you can decrypt data. Because obviously you are using the customer data key to decrypt your data, but that is done outside of KMS. For KMS, the story stops here. And again, last but not least, the HSM just forget everything.